Ladies and gentlemen, before I go into any kind of boxing, I want to read from you Psalm 71, verse 1. In Thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be put to confusion. One more time. In You, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be put to confusion. The theme here I'm going to have in this video throughout is going to be focus. It's going to be focus. Let's start out. BoxingScene.com. Golovkin's coach reacts to keyboard judges saying that Jacobs won. This is an article by Edward Tchaikovsky. In essence, this is what Abel Sanchez had to say. Last Saturday night, 3 judges scored it for Golovkin, so I don't care what anybody else says. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the fact, and the fact is that's the way that it was scored. It's going to go down in history that that's how the fight went, and nobody cares what other people have to say. Sanchez told Belorik IC Worldwide TV. On social media, a lot of keyboard warriors and keyboard trainers and keyboard judges have come into thinking that they are important, or they know what the heck they're talking about. The judges scored the fight, and that's the only thing that matters. In truth, he's right. What really matters is the judge's decision. Close fight or not, that's how they scored. So he's correct. Golovkin is planning to fight again in June, possibly in his home country of Kazakhstan. An undefeated WBO World Middleweight Champion Billy Joe Saunders of the UK is the opponent being targeted for the date. Their two sides are currently involved in ongoing discussions and hopes to reach an agreement. Like I said before, it's all about focus. So it's where you put your focus. In this case, they went in there to win, and the people who really needed to determine that fate was either the boxer in knocking out the other boxer or the judges. In this case, it went into the hands of the judges, and that was the judge's decision. And we got to respect it. So Abel Sanchez is 100% correct there in what he's supposed to say. And I can't disagree with him because he's correct. And you can see the judges' scorecards here, 115, 112, 115, 112, and 114, 113. Now, as to should Abel Sanchez work on certain parts of Golovkin's game, like his defense, I strongly think he should, because Danny Jacobs was really in this fight. I don't consider this fight a robbery at all, but I would say that I thought Danny Jacobs won the fight. But I'm not a judge, and so it really doesn't matter. What really mattered was the 3 judges scoring the fight at the end of the day. So, in their eyes, Gennady Golovkin won, and that's what matters. Now, should there be a rematch? I think so. It doesn't have to be an immediate rematch, like I said before, but I think Golovkin should try and settle in people's minds that he definitely won this fight by rematching Jacobs and beating him comprehensively. This is what Andre Ward is actually doing, which leads us actually to the other article I would like to talk about, which has to do with boxing's pound-for-pound debate as to who is the #1 boxer in the world. Currently, the Ring magazine rates Andre Ward as the #1 pound-for-pound boxer. Roman Gonzalez was the #1 boxer. Some people feel that he didn't lose the fight to his opponent, which is here. Let me see if I can pronounce that name. Srisaket Rungvisai. Okay, that's the name of the Thai fighter. So some people don't believe he lost to Rungvisai, and therefore they think he should still be #1 pound-for-pound. And ESPN, they have Gennady Golovkin as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Some people believe that Andre Ward didn't beat Sergey Kovalev, so they have Sergey Kovalev as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. So when we look at discussions, they include Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalev, Golovkin, Gonzalez, and Vasily Lomachenko, and even Terence Crawford vying for that #1 spot. So no one has definitively stated that they are #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. Again, Corey Erdman, who did this article, he's somewhat correct. I mean, if you really look at it, though, Andre Ward is ahead of everyone else in terms of not only his resume, but also in terms of the level of competition he has faced throughout his career. But nonetheless, these fighters who have had close fights, like Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev, Golovkin and Danny Jacobs, Gonzalez and Sri Saket Sur Rungvisai, they should have a rematch. It's that simple. So if Rungvisai rematches Roman Gonzalez, we can get a finalization on that. If Golovkin rematches Jacobs, we can have a finalization on Golovkin. And if Andre Ward rematches Sergey Kovalev, which more than likely is going to happen, they're going to rematch one another. We already know that Sergey Kovalev has signed part of his end of the contract, and so Andre Ward will probably sign his end of the contract, and they will be fighting somewhere, I heard, in June. I think that's where they're looking to fight one another. So I think that, you see, if there's a disputable win by a fighter, they can clear that up by simply rematching the opponent. And if they beat the opponent much more clearly, then clearly they did win the first fight. The judges were valid in having that first fight scored in their favor. So it really, if there's something disputable, you just have a rematch. And in the case of Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs, I think that a rematch is something that they should really look forward to. Even if it's not an immediate rematch, it should be something to clear up the misunderstandings about whether Golovkin won the fight or if Jacobs won the fight. If Jacobs, for instance, wins the rematch, we have a situation like what happened with Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz. Frampton won the first one. Leo Santa Cruz came and cleared it up by winning the second one. So you have a third one. So you have a trilogy. Wait, there's a third one to clear up if who actually won, who deserves to win the whole series. Okay, so that's how you do it. Roy Jones Jr. beat Antonio Tarver. Tarver came back, knocked out Roy Jones Jr., which is a very definitive win. And they had a third one just to determine who really was better, and it turned out to be Antonio Tarver. Right? So, like I said, the pound-for-pound debate is somewhat of a debate. Yes, I agree with that to some degree. I think, though, there's no debate that Andre Ward is pound-for-pound #1 in the world, and I think the Ring Magazine finally is accepting that fact. But, hey, if you need to clear it up, Andre Ward faced Sergey Kovalev. Andre Ward beats him more definitively. Then that's cleared out the window. Andre Ward should be #1 pound for pound in the world. Of course, that doesn't guarantee him the #1 spot. He has to keep on performing. He'll have to keep on beating light heavyweights, top tier light heavyweights, clearly, to remain boxing's pound for pound #1, and that's just the way of it is. So Gennady Golovkin, he clears it up with Danny Jacobs. He goes on to beat Billy Joe Saunders in a very clear manner. He makes that big vie for boxing's pound for pound top 5. He's never going to be, in my estimations, boxing's pound for pound #1 based on the resume he has. I'm sorry, he's got to get better competition before he can be considered pound for pound #1. He himself acknowledged that a while back, so it's not like he doesn't know boxing. I think Golovkin really knows boxing. I think his trainer tries to, give these superlatives, but he's less and less doing that because he doesn't have to promote his fighter as much to get big fights. And I think it's mostly those Golovkin fans who just sold on Golovkin that overhype him. And I'm talking about their Golovkin fans in the media, their Golovkin fans and casual fans online as well. But Golovkin himself I think he's a down-to-earth, very centered person. So I don't really have a problem with it. Now, those two, then you got Vasily Lomachenko. If he continues fighting tougher and tougher competition, I mean, this guy just came into boxing and he's fighting the toughest competition ever. I don't think there's anybody else who's fought tougher competition than Vasily Lomachenko consistently. Okay, Rigondeaux started doing that, then they kind of blackballed him. That's why Lomachenko gets the opportunities, Rigo doesn't. You know, it is what it is. Yes, there's still race involved in this boxing thing, and it's sad. But Guillermo Rigondeaux, we're hoping we'll get some other bigger fights soon. We'll see. Time will tell. Terence Crawford, doing well so far. Still has to step up the competition a little bit more. Again, if Terence Crawford is not in the top 5 pound for pound, then there's no reason Golovkin should be. And it's just what it is. You have to look at level of competition all the time, and the varied kind of competition. So that's what I got to say about that. As to anything else I have to say about pound for pound number 1, we'll know within the space of a year to 2 years who the pound for pound number 1 is, and that will be settled. Believe you me. Now, here's some other news information. Jorge Linares, again, he's happy to face Mikey Garcia in Las Vegas, LA, anywhere. So that's cool. I picked Mikey to beat him, but it's good to see him being like a true champion, wanting to fight the best in the world. Jean Pascal, this is very interesting. He's telling Nick Diaz, "You coward, don't talk smack, fight me." This is by TMZ. That's pretty interesting, because if the Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight comes down, you know, it actually happens, then it'd be interesting that you have Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz on the undercard. I would prefer Nate Diaz to be on the undercard, but hey, let's have MMA versus boxing all the way through. I'm pretty sure some MMA fighters are going to fare pretty well against some of the boxers, so I'm looking forward to that. That would be nice. You know, Jean Pascal, he brings a big following behind him, especially the Canadian following. So some people from Canada are going to come through just to watch Jean Pascal fight, because Pascal's fights are always exciting. I don't think I've ever seen a Jean Pascal boring fight. So Nate Diaz versus Jean Pascal would be a good matchup, and it would be interesting because Nate Diaz is a tough guy. Nick Diaz, is a tough guy, and Jean Pascal is a tough guy. So it would be interesting to see a tough boxer versus a tough UFC fighter. I pretty much picked Pascal to win, but that's not the point. Point is, Nick Diaz should be able to hold his own, and you might be surprised that Pascal can't knock him out. That would be a surprising thing. It would be a good matchup. Now, we have here Robert Diaz. He's from Golden Boy Promotions, and he believed that Canelo would have the upper hand if he was to fight Gennady Golovkin. I also believe the same thing, so it's nothing new there. But he also thought that Danny Jacobs beat Golovkin. Alright, he said, "I felt Jacobs won the fight. Going in, you don't expect what you get, so anything outside of that you think is a victory. But I've known Danny since the beginning of his career, did the majority of his fights, and when watching, you hope he can do it." Well, he's a bit biased because he's associated with Danny Jacobs, but the point anyway is that he thought that Jacobs beat Golovkin. See, I'm of the same opinion that Jacobs beat Golovkin, but see, the point that people are missing is this. While I believe that Jacobs beat Golovkin, I don't think this fight was a robbery in any way, shape, or form. Anybody calling it a robbery, I just can't see what they're seeing. I'm sorry. I thought the fight was close enough, and especially because of the knockdown. So for judges to give Golovkin the fight is not really, doesn't surprise me really. And I was hoping that Golovkin would get the win because it sets up the Golovkin. It sets up Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez. So I think that at the end of the day, that's what I want to see. I want to see Golovkin face Canelo Alvarez, and the more star-spangled he is, the better it would be. So if he can get the WBO title from Billy Joe Saunders, more kudos to him. I'm not really worried about that, you know. Now, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, Golovkin's going to be determined to get that 4th belt so he can be undisputed champion. Billy Joe Saunders has some know-how on how to beat Golovkin. He's a very smart fighter, so I don't really see Billy Jones getting knocked out by Golovkin. The only thing, like I said before, is his stamina. Will he be able to? Will he fade in the middle rounds or not? That's the question. He's a smart fighter, but Jacobs had some really extraordinary conditioning going on there. Billy Joe Saunders, I don't know if he got that conditioning, so we'll see. Buster Douglas. So Buster Douglas said Pacquiao would beat Mayweather, maybe by KO, if they were to meet. They were to rematch one another. Mayweather said he's coming out of retirement for Conor McGregor, and everybody's now talking about fighting Floyd Mayweather. I heard Oscar saying instead of Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor, why didn't he fight Canelo Alvarez at 160? It's funny, man. But yeah, Buster Douglas. You know what? I don't even know why I'm covering this article. But Mayweather's focused on Conor McGregor. Okay, so let's just go recap a bit. It's all about focus, right? Here, Robert Diaz, he believed that Jacobs beat Golovkin. It's not a problem. Jacobs was focused. He was dialed in. He was dialed in for that win. And he did. In my opinion, he got that win. He got the win. But the judges didn't see it that way. And it's all good. Once he did what he was supposed to do. And he pretty much did that for most of the fight. So he should feel good about himself. Jean Pascal wants to fight Nick Diaz. And remember, the theme of this video is focus. So is Jean Pascal focused to fight Nick Diaz on a Mayweather-McGregor undercard? We'll see. Linares shows his focus by looking to face Mikey Garcia, who's one of the very good fighters in the division. It makes sense for him to fight Mikey Garcia because Mikey Garcia is basically not the real champion. Linares is. So, love to see that fight. Again, dialed in, focused on who you want to fight. With the pound for pound debate, there's no one pound for pound great that really has completely separated himself from the pack. Andre Ward has a great resume, and therefore, to really get the most dominant guy in the world in boxing, there will need be 4 rematches. And finally, we talked about Abel Sanchez, who was focused on the judge's decision, and he's not focused on anything else, which he should be as a trainer. And so, as a result of that, I give him kudos for that. But I do suggest to him that he does some serious work on Golovkin's defense, because Golovkin still gets hit way too much. I don't care how tough he is. I suggest to Abel Sanchez that he goes and looks at the fights Mayweather versus Carlos Baldomir. Baldomir kept coming. He'd get tagged, but he still kept coming, okay? I suggest that he looks at the fight Floyd Mayweather versus Diego Corrales. Diego Corrales kept coming. He is getting tagged, but he kept coming, okay? I would suggest, and Diego Corrales was a hell of a boxer at those lower weight classes. I would suggest he look at Jesus Chavez versus Floyd Mayweather. I'm talking about the second Jesus Chavez versus Floyd Mayweather. Kept coming. Was in Floyd Mayweather's crawl. Kept coming. Eventually was stopped. My point anyway is this. You can be tough how much you want. If you're still getting tagged, the weakest, most feather-fisted guy is going to drop you eventually. Especially if he's working the body all the time. Billy Joe Saunders ain't no knockout artist, okay? He dropped handily, okay? So, Gennady Golovkin needs to stop getting hit so much. Sean Porter's father is trying to train him on defense as well for his fight with Andre Berto. You cannot be collecting those hellacious shots all the time. And Jacobs was pretty much tagging up Golovkin whenever he wanted to, setting him up for those shots as well. And combination of shots at that. Something that Canelo would just run through him with, okay? And Billy Joe Saunders, he's not no slouch. So Billy Joe Saunders is going to have his field day landing punches on Golovkin as well. And, of course, he has to understand that Golovkin's very tough, and that's not going to deter Golovkin from doing what he needs to do. He's very strong. So I hope Billy Joe Saunders understands what he's getting himself into, especially in Kazakhstan. He's going to realize that he better train his butt off and be in the best physical conditioning he could possibly be in, because, you know, Golovkin's got a really strong mindset. That's one thing I got to give him his props for. He has a great mindset, focused, dialed in, and that's very important. You can't afford to be confused in there. He was confused against Danny Jacobs, absolutely, but still, you got to be dialed in. The whole point is focus. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so on that note, that's my video. You guys have a great one. Don't forget to donate to my channel. I need sponsors.